thank you for this evening. Thank you for your patience. And for those that don't know me, my name is Eve Gomez, and I'm with EG Interpreting Services, also with My School Options as the community outreach arm of the Institute of Quality Education. And I'm honored to serve you here as your guide through this evening's event. Hopefully we can just go right on in and be smooth about it. Well, let me welcome you all to the first of Northwest Indiana Virtual Town Hall on youth development and resiliency during a pandemic, brought to you by the Project Rebuild Foundation. And we want to thank the Project Rebuild Foundation for spearheading this tonight. And of course, in case you have seen or not, the name hashtag Use Your Voice Education in the Age of COVID was chosen for this event due to, of course, the drastic changes that COVID has brought upon us and our educational systems, and because of the struggles each of tonight's featured voices has heard from the families they serve. And as families around the world adjust to this new norm, is what we call it now, right? The new norm. We're honored to have three of our local legislators here with us this evening. We want to thank them. I'm muted again, I am told. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, wonderful. We learn in this new norm how to multitask, read, speak, and listen at the same time, just about, right? So we want to thank again the three legislators that are here with us this evening. And we're willing to hear, that are willing to hear our voices as we use them this evening to let them know what we need, especially legislatively, around ensuring that our children's education during this time indeed adequately and appropriately feeds their development and resilience, so that this exit of COVID be stronger and wiser, and of course, at full capacity. So let me introduce you to these three wonderful people. And again, we want to thank them for their time. I know that they are very, very busy during this season. So we go on and introduce our first Democratic nominee for Congress. That's Mr. Frank Mervan. Welcome. You can unmute yourself for a second. Okay, can you hear me, Mr. Mervan? Indiana State Senator Eddie Melton. If you'd like to say something real quick, you can unmute yourself.
You guys had to unmute us on your end, so okay. that might have been Frank's problem as well. So.
Okay, if we can unmute our speakers, that would be great. Welcome again, Democratic nominee for Congress, Frank Mervan.
Thank you very much, Eve.
You're welcome. And also again, Indiana State Senator, Mr. Eddie Melton.
Good evening, thank you.
And last but not least, Indiana State Representative, Ms. Lisa Beck.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome, welcome, Ms. Beck. And thank you again, guys, for making time to be here to speak on important issues. But before we begin tonight's conversation, of course, we always have some house rules, right? Just like at home and everywhere we go. Let me reiterate why we are here: to provide a medium for families in the region to voice to their legislators what this new normal has revealed in terms of what's needed to make this changing dynamic of education work at an optimum. And the challenges they've been experiencing, the struggles that they have to go through, we want to know about those things. So we're not here to discuss anything outside of this, okay? Nothing that has to do with anything else but what we're zoning in. And we're, if provided, of course, the opportunity to speak and your question or comment has nothing to do with education or the youth development resiliency, then we may end up muting your mic. Okay, and this is with all due respect, we just want to keep it zoned in into this discussion of this town hall. And of course, those that are watching, you're actually just viewing of what we call the speaker's view is the person that's speaking is who you're mostly seeing. And that's actually to be more of a pleasurable experience and not seeing all the faces that sometimes we can get distracted, right? So for your questions or comments, please share those in the chat box, because we do have someone from time to time watching and reading your questions, okay, and comments, and please share those there. If you are with us via Zoom, or in the comments if you are with us via Facebook Live. And of course, Facebookers, we welcome you as well. Please know that during this event, we will not share with the legislators any questions or comments that do not concern, quote, education in the age of COVID. However, we'll send these along with the questions from the Zoom chat box and comments sections of the Facebook to them after the event. So they will get to see your questions, but after the fact. And you may raise your hand to speak live if you will, but we will only unmute for this option if time permits. If time permits. Everything is scheduled on time as far as how many minutes each they'll have to speak. So for respect of the time purposes, this is why we're doing this. And we're also offering up to no more than 10 questions and or comments for the legislators to address their time, of course, permitting. And just a heads up, we have already provided them with the questions you submitted prior to when you registered to this event. So feel free to use this opportunity also to address other questions around this topic that you may have, or legislators cannot prevent us if they do not hear from us. So your voice this evening is mandatory for our future. And again, we thank you for being here this evening to share everything that we have here today. And of course, the featured voices are also our opponents, right? My goodness, talk about having ADD, right? This evening and the unmuting, but I thank everyone. We have one more person that's in the chat room as well, waiting in the waiting room. Thank you for bringing them in. Before we open the floor discussions, let's hear 4 areas that significantly impact our education process: school attendance, truancy, family life management, education options, youth monitoring. Why these 4 featured voices, you may ask, right? Why them? Well, because having processes in place that established and sustained, and having a healthy functional families that ensure our youth development into educated adults who make life enhancing versus destructive decisions, as we see so often during this time of uncertainty, right? And of course, thanks to their ability to have education options that permit them to connect with an education just appropriate for them. So while ensuring that they complete that education is essential for our youth development resiliency, even for communities and economic development, and thus for community well-being, all of which are education fuels, right? And all these 4 areas do exert this significant impact. They usually receive this little awareness, as you often know, from the general public, but especially from our government. So to increase our awareness and understanding of these important and relevant components, let me first introduce Judge Inga Lewis Shannon with the Project Rebuild Foundation, tonight's town hall host. Project Rebuild is known as the City of Gary's Truancy Program, but it's so much more than that. Judge Shannon shared with us the PRBF's vision around youth development and resilience, and how your program helps to realize that through truancy intervention and prevention. We want to thank you, Judge. And of course, you are time. So let me introduce also Janae Beleza with Indiana Parenting Institute. Janae, please share with us IPI's vision around youth development and resiliency, and how your program helps to realize that through family life management skills building. Actually, let me back it up. I'm going to allow Judge Shannon to come in and tell us a little bit about the vision and the intervention of this truancy program.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining. Project Rebuild is a truancy intervention and prevention program. And we basically look at truancy from the aspect of what are the true causes of truancy. And we attempt to address them. So rather than punishing the actual symptom, we are looking at diagnosing the problem and addressing it. And we've been doing this for approximately almost 8 years now. And what we learned in the beginning is that children don't go to school for several reasons. And a lot of them is not their faults. And so we attempt to just address it at the root. And during this period of COVID, we had to really rethink how we dealt with the issues of truancy. And initially I was terrified, because I'm thinking a lot of our children, a lot of the students are already behind the 8 ball. They're having difficulties, you know, learning and having to deal with the problems at home. And so I'm thinking, what are they going to do now that they're not in school? Because when they were actually in school with a teacher in front of them and they weren't grasping, then how are we going to deal with it now? And I thought about it, prayed about it. And one of the things that we decided to do is we're going to look at this cup as being half full as opposed to half empty. And by doing that, what I mean is a lot of our students were behind. So this actually gives them an opportunity to actually get caught up. So what we did last semester was we worked to make sure that the students all got tablets and the electronics that they needed so that they could actually participate. And then we are working now to make sure that they're getting the tutoring and the one-on-one that they need, interaction that they need. Because what we found, and make sure you raise your hand when I start talking too much because I get excited. But what we what we found is that many of our students learn differently, and so what they need is that hands-on, one-on-one contact. And so we've been working with different tutoring sites. We work with Clark Road, and we've been looking at other sites to really help our students address that issue so that they can take this opportunity where everybody is pretty much on an even plane. Everybody's trying to deal with e-learning. So we're going to help them take this opportunity to get ahead of the game. And I'm actually excited. I'm very excited about it. And I look forward to working with all of the legislators so that we can make sure that our kids get a heads up.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for doing that. It's so, so needed. And of course, now we'll bring it to Janae Beleza with the Indiana Parenting Institute. Share with us to know more about what you are doing, Janae, with the Indiana Parenting Institute, with your vision.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. I first of all want to thank Project Rebuild for allowing us this opportunity to share with you what is on the minds of our families. So Indiana Parenting Institute was founded by a mom who spent her parenthood in search of the best possible outcome for her child, successful adulthood. So I want to thank my mom for that. And as we share with our parents at IPI, to reach successful adulthood, our goal as parents and as a community even need to be ensuring our children are consistently exposed to those experiences and opportunities that promote healthy and appropriate youth development and resiliency. So enlightening our parents on things like the importance of conscious and intentional lifelong learning, as that is what development is, the importance of consciously and intentionally developing support networks that get you and your family where you want to go, and the necessity of vocal self-expression in achieving our desires, for if we don't speak, we can't receive, is IPI's role in helping our families and the community that families build and represent reach that state known as well-being. And we call this enlightenment family life management skills building. So at IPI, we teach families to self-reflect, to question, and to self-express, so they are not afraid or reluctant to voice their whys, meaning why are things like this, or to voice and share their whats, now things must change now. So in addition, we teach the importance of listening and serving others, for every need we have gets satisfied by another human being, and we cannot expect to receive what we are unwilling to give. Now that said, I would like to share with this evening's legislators what your families, the families in the communities that you represent and have taken an oath to serve, seek your support in. Number one is shift your funding and resources focus from intervention to prevention. With an intervention focus, government is turned primarily into law enforcement, but what government was created to do was to lead and to guide, which is, yes, to show us where to go, but more importantly, show us how to get there. The problem is not bad people. The problem is what people don't know. We can only make decisions within the context of our knowledge base, and when that knowledge base is limited and thus lacking, also known as poor, so then are the decisions we make from it. So we're just asking you to do your job and guide us. Now, fund our life knowledge and our systemic knowledge, not just our academic knowledge. For social ills are really the result of life and systemic inexperience, that is, from an ignorance or misunderstanding of life's hows. Which brings me to number two, expand our definition of education and what to appropriate this funding towards. We are now at least 2 generations deep into the working home way of operating, and we now see the result of moving our primary focus from family to work. Many of life's developments that normally occurred in the home, in many homes today, just gets bypassed, for there is no one there to teach life skills, community, and the like. And our kids don't learn these essential skills in school. And I think the times are showing that we must expand our concept and vision of our education system and realize that it needs to include these components for our social health and well-being. Legislators must work to implement this shift and fund it appropriately. In other words, fund it to succeed. Again, it's governing with a focus on prevention over intervention, so that education is not only about what we're learning, but about how long we learn as well, which is for a lifetime. So access to social educational opportunities like parenting education, financial literacy, vocational skills, social and life skills development and enhancement needs to become a funded part of our education system. Number three is today's system is not set up to support family. When an employee is made to feel wrong or inferior for having to unexpectedly miss a day or two of work for a sick child, we have created a system that places family last and industry first. And are we surprised with the social issues we are seeing today? Because if industry and consumerism are more important than family, bonding, relationships, the result is a bunch of people occupying the same space who have no idea how to build, even be community. For family is our first community. So legislators, we must restructure the system to not place family and its needs or concerns on the back burner, but to, at minimum, have these two work in partnership on an equal footing of significance, receiving mutually beneficial supports and resources so that both may thrive. Parents should never have to be put in a position where they are forced to choose between work or family, and you have no idea how often that occurs today. It is time to face this dilemma and address it, or in time, industry will suffer as family has, as we persist in equipping industry with broken people, broken from a misdirected focus and priority, fueled by a misguided and misaligned system. So I just again want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that. And thank you, legislators, for permitting IPI to share the voices of its families with you this evening. Thank you.
Sorry about that. And of course, next, thank you, Janae. Let me introduce Cesar Roman from My School Options. Cesar, please share with us what MSO's or My School Options vision around youth development and resiliency, and how your program helps to realize that through advocacy and the necessity for education options within the education arena. Welcome, Cesar.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Eve, for hosting and having moderating the event this evening. Thank you to Project Rebuild for hosting this event. Incredible forum that you put together this evening. And also thank you to the legislators for taking your time and hearing out the needs of our communities. Again, my name is Cesar Roman. I am also a product of Northwest Indiana, from East Chicago. And very familiar with the region. I am based out of Indianapolis, but have been working with the My School Options team for the past 3 years, traveling around the state to just try to gather information, try to understand how education impacts our communities, and trying to understand how we can be a resource to make sure that we are addressing needs of our families and communities around the state. As such, the Institute for Quality Education, My School Options is the outreach team for the Institute for Quality Education, whose mission is simple. It's to ensure that all kids in Indiana receive a quality education And by doing that, we strive to do that by making sure that families understand how to use education to best suit the needs of their children and what options and choices are available around the state. We have a very robust education environment in Indiana. But one of the things that we often find is that families do not even know that they even have choices, or that they can make an educational choice that best suits the needs of their children. As we're addressing this issue of COVID in education, I've heard from students all across the nation, but in particular in our state, of the impacts of COVID in education on their education. By far, I think the one thing that, and I'm sure our legislators and others are very aware of this, by far the number one issue that we found was that folks had lack of connectivity to Wi-Fi and didn't have access to the internet. It was a big issue across our state. And I think that no matter where you came from, whether you were in a rural community or in an urban community in our state, we felt some of the same pains. We had families that just weren't even able to even begin to have those tools to even continue their education. Second, what we found is that a lot of our families did not have access to tablets. They did not have access to laptops and to the tools that they needed to learn at home. Third, many of our families or our children and our family members did not know how to use the technology needed to learn at home, right? And as many of us, including me, I'm a proud father of 5 beautiful children. We quickly shifted from having to work and then also be teachers at the same time, which many of us weren't trained to do. And it was extremely difficult to balance that work and education life and making sure that our kids continue to strive during this pandemic and just such a critical time for them and their learning. So what we found is that families across the state and across the nation really have faced some tremendous challenges, not to mention our educators and our school systems that are really being tried and put to the test on a new way of learning and also a new way of teaching our children. So I want to once again commend Project Rebuild for putting this forum, because one of the things that we do find is that it is a holistic approach to a student, right? It is more than education that impacts the family. It is some of the very same issues that some of our partners here tonight are addressing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Cesar. And next, of course, let me introduce December Lextexier, Vice President of the Organizational Capacity at the Indiana Youth Institute. Can everybody hear me okay? Just want to make sure. Okay, awesome. The Indiana Youth Institute, the Indiana affiliate for Mentors, the National Mentoring Partnership. December, please share with us why IYI and Mentors' vision around youth development and resiliency, and how the trauma-informed school-based mentoring program that you steer and advocate for help to realize this.
Great. Well, good evening, and thank you so much for having us this evening, and thanks to our hosts and fellow voices for tonight's important gathering. So building on tonight's theme of use your voice, I want to first share a story with you all, a brief story about a true story about a young man by the name of Timothy, his journey to find his own voice. Timothy is a native of Gary, Indiana. At 13 years old, Timothy expressed his interest in a nearby mentoring program. On the application, he described himself as a young African-American male who loves to read, likes sports, and was a deep thinker. His mom shared that he thrived when Timothy was playing the saxophone or reading a book, and yet Timothy was struggling to find his own voice. He and his family had been impacted by systemic racism and inequitable access to opportunities. Timothy was painfully shy, uncomfortable in speaking up in class, and increasingly uncomfortable looking adults in the eyes. He joined the local mentoring program, and together with his parents, teachers, and mentor, they formed what they affectionately called Team Timothy, which was a supportive net that was committed to come alongside Timothy to develop him emotionally, physically, academically, and socially, introducing him to various opportunities and networks. Fast forward to today, Timothy turns 21 next week. Timothy is a junior in college, a class leader, a frequent guest speaker and panel participant now, and a violence prevention advocate and a thriving young man. Timothy represents thousands of other young men and women of Northwest Indiana and across Indiana and our country who have remarkable strengths and abilities within them. They simply, and amongst things, need healthy, positive relationships to flame that fire of brilliance within them. There are various types of quality school-based mentoring programs serving in these difficult times. Quality-based mentoring has proven across our country and across our state to advance connectedness to school environments and peers, improve relationships with teachers and staff, improve academic competence, decrease absenteeism, and greater access and use to tutoring, credit tracking, counseling, and post-secondary planning. We at the Indiana Youth Institute are committed to elevating quality youth mentoring in Northwest Indiana and across the state. We do this by providing coaching and public awareness and advocacy, and we've collaborated with several of you on this call tonight. So we appreciate your relationship, and Senator Melton, especially, we just very much appreciate your longstanding commitment to quality mentoring. I would just ask to all legislators here tonight, we would ask you to consider these specific ways you can support or continue to support investments in quality youth mentoring by championing financial investments, given that many of the mentoring programs across Northwest Indiana and our state are nonprofits and are challenged based on the financial demands of the current context. We'd ask you to improve access by advocating for volunteerism and community engagement, and thirdly, by expanding understanding of youth mentoring and your influence of circles or social awareness. I would draw your attention to the Transition to Success Mentoring Act proposed by Congressman Andre Carson, as well as the Chronic Absenteeism Reduction in School Act. Before I wrap up, I would just put out there a statement that I think is quite relevant here as well, that says healthy relationships is like oxygen in life. I'm going to say that again. Healthy relationships is like oxygen to life. If we see, and as we see healthy relationships as oxygen, I ask you to support, advocate, and create space for that oxygen in the lives of our schools and the lives of our students and families. Thank you.
Hi, this is Janae, sorry. We knew that Eve was having some issues earlier, so we may have lost her. So until we get her back, I will continue on with the program. So bear with me as is she here?
She's just saying you gotta unmute her.
Oh, that's right. Somebody made me host again. Okay. Sorry about that, Eve. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, I sent a private chat, so no problem. Thank you so much, Ms. December, for offering that information to us. And of course, now we're going into public comment, Q&A with legislators. I think we're going great on time. We want to keep this at a minimum, and we thank you again for the time that you're serving and for serving also in the community. We'll now open up the floor for public questions and or comments. Use your voice, everybody, because that's what we're talking about. Hashtag use your voice. Like our 4 featured voices, let your legislators know what you need, especially around education, to ensure your child, everyone's child, development and resiliencies get suitably and adequately addressed. We will begin with a few of your submitted questions. Feel free to comment or raise your hand, or but if there's additional points, i.e. use your voice, right? Hashtag in the chat box. I did say raise hand, I mean, you know, raise additional points. Put it in the chat box, or if you are on Facebook, you can also comment there. And we do have Tara, Janae, and the team checking out the chat box in the Zoom and also on the Facebook. We thank you, and they're hearing you. Thank you for manning these to ensure that everybody's being heard. In addition, feel free to raise your hand. I guess, yes, raise your hand if you know how to do that, right? If you would like to really quote, unquote, hashtag, use your voice and speak live, but understand we're only gonna unmute you if time permits it, you know. If we have enough time, then we can allow that. But no worries, again, we will ensure that today's legislators get a copy of all comments from this evening's event. And are you ready, legislators? Okay,
Yes.
is that a yes?
Yep.
Well, our first question or comment is, as the times have been revealing, it is imperative that education appropriately serve the diversity of customers who utilize it daily. That is because this diversity presents with specific, diverse needs and strengths while seeking specific and diverse outcomes. So how are you as a legislator seeking to ensure that the diversity gets addressed at its best? And that's something that I am just so in tune with that, and that's diversity. And thus served by our education system versus continuing on with the current conforming of this diversity through homogeneous process, forgive me. Who wants to address that first question? Any one of you?
I can.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Melton.
Thank you. Thank you. First off, I want to thank everyone for pulling this group together. I want to thank the judge. I want to thank Janae for the invitation and everyone that's been participating on this, and thank my colleagues that's on the call today. To your question, we know that diversity is extremely crucial, especially for our students. One particular area we have to discuss and focus on is diversity within our teachers and the teaching population. Unfortunately, we know that that's an issue that has not been fully addressed. We know we have a teacher shortage in the state of Indiana, but we also have to look at the data. We know that white students make up 67% of total student enrollment in Indiana. I believe 93% of teachers are white. So some of the things that we've looked at in the legislature, I know that we've worked with my colleague, Senator Greg Taylor, is expanding resources to recruit more minority teachers into the field and the profession of becoming an educator, but also looking at how do we retain those teachers that currently exist. And that's going to have to be raising teacher pay. So those are some of the issues, but along with that, we have to look at the curriculum and making sure that the curriculum is extremely in alignment culturally sensitive in terms of what our students and our children are experiencing and what they understand culturally. Also teaching about history, the history of their culture, the history of their people, be it Black and brown. These type of curriculums need to be offered and expanded more. We did pass legislation 2 years ago to provide that type of curriculum to make it an option for school corporations to teach ethnic studies. So that is progress, but that's just the beginning. So that's just some of the things that has been taking place. I was just hanging my hat on those two for right now as a starting point. That's looking to increase intentional enrollment of more diverse teachers and looking to expand more diverse and cultural curriculum into our schools.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for a great answer. And our next question / comment is, safety is always a critical concern. And with the variety of feelings and opinions today around the steps currently in place to gain and sustain our safety, what are you as a legislator seeking after to keep our kids, teachers, families, and communities both physically and mentally safe and healthy, of course, during these times? Who wants to address this one?
I could, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Ms. Beck.
So I'm Lisa Beck, and I'm from House District 19, which is Crown Point, Hobart, half of Hobart, the bottom half, Winfield, Lakes of Four Seasons on the Lake and Porter County side. So I have parts of by Porter County. My students go to Boom Grove. And I also have a lot of students. I only have one precinct in Maryville, but I have a lot of students that have a Hobart address that go to Maryville High School. So I have a lot of different schools. The schools themselves are different from each other. But I do think that I spend a lot of time at try to go to as many school board meetings as I can. And it seems that a lot of the issues with safety have been taken on by the schools in a different way, you know, doing what they need to do. And, but I was also, we had in the last session, we have several teachers that are in our caucus, and one of them is Representative Pfaff, and she had a amendment to a bill that was going to allow safe school funds to be used for school-based mental health and social emotional wellness services to students. The 2019 Indiana School Safety Task Force issued a report calling for increased flexibility and allowable uses for the secured school fund and identified a lack of available mental health services for students as a key weakness in the Indiana school plan. However, that language was taken out of House Bill 1004. The Governor Holcomb's safety bill came out of the committee on the Senate side without incorporating these recommendations. I will let you know that House Democrats worked with key stakeholders, including Superintendent McCormick, in order to get that language, which did not pass, unfortunately. So I think we have tried to address some of the issues with, you know, I think part of this is also students with disabilities and making sure that kids have what they need in the schools. On the safety issue, I think this summer after COVID and, you know, what we saw in Minneapolis, I think I'm working with our local prosecutor, you guys know Bernie Carter, and Charlie Brown, who's now a Lake County Councilman, previously a state representative, and some of the police departments to look at, and also we see a component where we want to add in job training in the trades, making it available. We're going to start with the north end of the county and work with some of the schools. You may know that USW every year has an effort where they go into all the schools, and you know, the African American USW leadership goes into the schools and talks to the kids about how to get into a trade. There's also the Indiana plan that is working with us, and they're trying to beef that up together in a cohesive plan that we can put together and go to the rest of the county. I mean, these are things that have happened in methods, if you want to call it that are working in other communities. And I think what it's really about is, you know, one of the superintendents said to me that he was comparing his school system, which has a large percentage of minorities, to a school system from another part of the state that had the largest percentage was white. And he said, you know, why is it that he's considered minority, the majority has minority when, you know, anyway, he's turning that around, and he's in his school, he's not referring to it that way. He's saying that, you know, their school, working with, maybe I'm not saying this right, but, you know, he really wants not to overplay that the minorities are in the majority, and, you know, looking at their issues in that school and working on them individually. So I'm super excited about that, and I want them to be a part of our program as well. So, but that's kind of in the launching stages. Hopefully I can have more to talk about with that. And I will say that today I was I'm still in the State House. We had meetings today with our courts and criminal code, and Lake County is requesting a new magistrate. And I really, I don't know a lot about, Judge, about your program, I just know when I was a prosecutor, there was a program with truancy, and I assume that it's the same program. But I can tell you that going back to what Senator Melton said, Senator, no, I forget his name. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm brain dead today. The one, oh my gosh. Anyway, he brought up with every single of the other counties that were asking for additional magistrates. He asked them and commended them for whatever program they have now initiated to try to get more minorities as judges. So I think that's
Senator Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taylor. Yeah, he asked really good questions about that. But there's been a lot of work that's been done on it on smaller counties. So and then there was one thing I was going to say, with Caesar had brought up the connectivity, and I think that has been an issue that we've been trying to address in the State House. And I think during COVID, we saw some really innovative ways. I know our local libraries had a adapter that they had. You could pull up in your car and you could get the internet, which is not the best, obviously, but we adapted. But I noticed that Porter County, the county itself is looking for funding, connectivity, internet for the kids in Porter County. So I think there's going to be innovative ways of getting that fixed, hopefully. But yeah, we definitely know that it's an issue. So thank you for letting me be on there.
Thank you, Lisa.
And Eve, if I could just say something also on the safety issue. So my name's Frank Mervan, and I am the Democratic nominee for the 1st Congressional District. But more importantly, or equally important, is as I serve today, I'm the North Township trustee. And I just wanted to talk about programs that we have focused on and worked on about making the community safe, and equally important, removing obstacles to learning. And so, we have worked in the city of East Chicago and Hammond, Whiting, East Chicago, Highland, and Munster, and have worked with the different school systems with the Title I programs to make sure that it was the students who needed the assistance that were deemed through the Title I program, to making sure they worked closely with the North Township Trustee's office. We had also talked about the vitality of making sure that we have mental health access and also social workers in the schools. I want to commend Senator Eddie Melton and Representative Lisa Beck for being on the front end, on the front lines of education on the state level. On a federal level, trying to wear two different hats. On a federal level, those programs can receive grant dollars, but in the urban areas, we do need to focus to make sure we're removing obstacles. If parents don't have the ability to have lights on or food in the house, or students are couch surfing from one house to another, that is going to be a disruption in education. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about safety, we're really talking about the holistic view to making sure that there are opportunities and stability in the house. When you have stability in someone's home, then students are capable of learning. We have consistently worked on, as soon as I became the township trustee, we put $20,000 into parents as teachers. So early development is essential. Early development and making sure that we are getting to the smaller kids, aged 24 months to 5 years. Parents as teachers would send representatives to 20 families within the township to be able to make sure developmentally they know where their children need to be, to have the books that are necessary, and to be able to move in the right direction. And I also want to touch about connectivity and how that is important to me as someone who is running for Congress. In the rural and urban areas, there are studies that show that we do need to focus on connectivity. In the city of Hammond, for example, and I also believe in the city of Gary, hotspots were provided. So school districts were able to find grants, and if you were unable to have access during COVID-19 to internet access, I know the school city of Hammond purchased up to 1,000 hotspots for students who were in need. But very often, if students are falling through the cracks and they weren't one of those thousands who needed it, we have to be able to help provide that. And so those are things that the federal government can focus on. You know, we've done things where we've worked on and have been in the schools, as I mentioned, with the social workers and the psychiatrists to make sure that there's mental health access. The other thing that I'm a big proponent on is making sure, because Lake Ridge or Calumet High School has a in-house federally qualified health center within the facility. And that giving access to healthcare and giving access to mental health, which in the school district and also within the community at large is a safety issue. If people are able to have access to healthcare and mental health access, parents and teachers alike, then you start making a difference in your community and you make an impact. And on truancy, you know, Congressman Andre Clarkson has always been a pioneer. Judge, we have met in East Chicago numerous of times of trying to get the truancy program up and running. Gilda Orange, who works with us, is a representative from the North Township Trustee's Office. And we have as a collective impact in the community, as a township, you know, if someone's student is kicked out of school because of truancy, then we put a hold on the assistance until we're able to work with the school district and collectively find solutions. How, if you're going to get assistance from the township and get taxpayer dollars, how your child needs to be in school. And those are all things on the front lines that I've worked on and that I'll be hopefully be able to take to Washington, D.C. And I'm wearing two different hats here, but
thank you.
Ultimately, what we need to know is that consistently what I have seen is Representative Beck and Senator Melton have been on the front lines of the educational component in the State House, and we're lucky to have them.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. And all of you are making great points of what needs to take place, but what is happening now is what we're very, very interested in knowing as well. And we thank you for all your support. Third question, and keep in mind, we're running short of time. So third question, comment is, what supports and engagement incentives are on the table for schools, students, teachers, and parents as they tackle enforced e-learning, of course, thanks to COVID, right? So who would like to answer that one?
I think I can try to address that. A couple things. I think one of the things that I would say federally and state-wise, I think that there's been a lack of leadership, consistent leadership across the board of giving school corporations a direction in schools on how to reopen. I think that's been an extreme concern for parents, and I say that as a parent, that every day, and Cesar, I heard you in the opening remarks with your 5 kids. I have 3 kids, and it's hard when you're trying to do a Zoom and you run over here and try to do some algebra, or you're trying to balance work and life. So, but the primary thing is safety, right? And parents want their children to be safe, and they want to know that they're going to re-enter into a safe atmosphere. But it's going to take resources to make sure that's going to happen, right? And it's not just the hardware and the software when it comes down to e-learning, but it's going to take resources for like PPE and cleaning supplies and ensuring that we, again, and I'm going to keep beating this drum when it comes down to teacher pay, ensuring that our teachers are compensated fairly enough because they are also essential workers, putting their lives on the line, just like so many others that's working in the grocery stores at the height of the pandemic. So when we talk about just equity and fairness, we have to be very realistic when we talk about the communities that have been impacted the most at COVID-19, and there are Black and brown communities that have suffered from underlying conditions such as diabetes, such as asthma, and these issues have to be addressed not just in the schools, but in our healthcare system. But holistically, collectively, all of these issues are interrelated. If we want to have a healthy child, a well-educated child, they have to go hand in hand. So we have to have a system, both in the federal and also on the state level, that's going to be able to work collaboratively to address those needs. And right now, we still see some gaps that need to be filled. So I think hopefully as we move into the 2021 session, which is a budget year, it's extremely important that folks that are on this line and folks that are watching on social media are engaged and participating in seeing where the dollars are going to be spent.
That is very important, and thank you for touching on that, Senator Melton. Tara, Janae, do we have any comments on Facebook or here in the chat room in the Zoom for with our legislators. Anyone has anything to say? Is there anything there?
Okay, hi, good evening, everyone. I have one question that was here. Give me 1 second, okay. This is from a 16-year-old, and they want to know what can be done to ensure that students are actually learning and not just doing the assignments. How can teachers help us more efficiently through virtual learning?
Right.
Anyone of the three would like to answer that?
Well, if I could, so I have an 8th grader and a senior, and one is my senior's e-learning and my 8th grader's in school. And ultimately why I bring that up is because when just like Senator Melton, you're doing a Zoom and you look over and you're helping your daughter out with econ or stats and probabilities. But the fact of the matter is the challenges that my children have are the same challenges that every other child has. And I guess what we're talking about when we talk about connectivity is teachers are the most valuable in our community because of the ability to interact and be with our children and with students every single day. And they are able to understand what is of need and what is guiding them and what they're lacking. And so when we're doing e-learning, we've got to be able to figure out how to have access to the teachers, and more importantly, do our very best to get that connectivity back, that human connection that is able to read what people are understanding and what isn't. So ultimately what that question boils down to is, how do we get back to connectivity and be safe in the schools with the PPE and make sure that we get through the COVID-19 so that we're not just teaching to, how we always use the phrase, teaching to the test, or just teaching to check a box, that there's actually retention and learning going on. And so ultimately, I think that's an all hands on deck between the local school boards and the parents and the teachers. I'm not quite sure how you can legislate something like that. But the fact of the matter is that is a collective issue that we are all going through based on the pandemic and the safety measures that were taken. But that is what's lost, is the connectivity and the value of the teacher of being able to read the student and know where they're progressing and where they're lacking. And so hopefully we'll be able to find a happy medium through technology and through assessments that are looking at those types of skill sets for teachers. But as we get through these these not uncertain times, but these uncharted times of never going through them before, those are conversations we have to have. And the more we talk about it, the more we'll find solutions.
Right. Thank you so much. And this is the toughest challenge, the connectivity that's lacking, but it's a challenge for everyone all around. Any other questions or comments, Ms. Janae or Tara? So we can go on to.
Can I make a very brief comment on that? And I think
Go right ahead.
Go ahead, Senator.
But he hit it right on the head with that. COVID-19 has been like an X-ray to our society. It has revealed a lot of weaknesses in our society, in our educational system. And we have to be very real and honest with ourselves. After learning this, because this has caught us, everyone off guard, we have to rethink how we're educating our children. So I think we got to also put that at the forefront of, because of this has brought forth a desire for us. We need to figure out, how do we address this down the road? Lord forbid if this is in current times, but if this happens again in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, what did we learn from 2019 and 2020 to prepare us in the future to address these needs? So we can't, as numbers, Lord willing, go down and cases go down, we still have to prepare for the future. So we are not caught slipping with another issue that will cause us to be out of school. So I think he hit it right on the head with the comments.
That is so true. That is so true. Anyone else that you see, Janae or Tara? So we can move on to the next.
I do,
Okay.
actually. I liked this question. Oh, actually, you know, some more questions came in and I lost it. Let's see, it was about equity. And I just thought that was a really good question. Basically, it was asking, let's see, I'm sorry. The thing that happens is you get it right. I had it right where I needed it to be. And then some more questions came in and just
Is all that is part of closing
you
the equity
know.
gap? Is that
I'm
what
like,
you're talking
no,
about?
come back. Here it is. I got it.
Okay.
So what are solutions to close the equity gap? That is lack of technology that still exists, funding for parents or guardians that need to work but lack childcare options, needed tutoring, mentoring, extra school time to close academic gaps pre-existing, present, and upcoming due to COVID. I just want to add something to this in the sense of, I picked this question because it kind of piggybacks on what Senator Melton was talking about in the sense of that this COVID has exposed a lot of our weaknesses. And so here's an opportunity for us all to look at those and come up with different ways of doing it. And I can't wait to hear how you all are assessing these equity gaps because now they're so obvious.
Who would like to answer that?
Well, I'm going to go with the practicality of what my current office is. So as a North Township trustee, we have 3 employees who have children, and they've had to take leave of absences and to be able to stay home and be with their children. And we're doing everything we can to try and help them. And I know that the Democratic caucus on the federal level has passed basically a funding program that would assist in childcare. It hasn't been heard by the Senate, but they have prioritized working mothers and single parents to make sure that they're receiving some relief during this time as they are either out of work or taking care of their children. And the importance, if you want to get our economy back on track, is making sure that we have programming and funding to be able to have assistance towards childcare. That consistently has been an issue for people living on the margins forever, that we have tackled at the North Township Trustee's Office. And as I am, hopefully going through November where I'm victorious and being able to go to Washington, D.C., a priority is making sure that either as a tax incentive or direct incentives because of COVID, that we're able to offer up affordable childcare for working parents so that they can have sustainable livings and that it is affordable and they can get back into the workforce and be able to excel. And that is something that we see at the township every single day of working parents making the choice between going to work and working 3 jobs and being able to provide for their children and have secure, reliable, safe childcare. And so that is a major issue. And when we close the equity gap on the federal level, I will be able to take that experience as a township trustee that I have seen firsthand and realize we've got to be able to figure out a subsidy that will allow for that. And once we do that, childcare and transportation are 2 major issues for people to be able to find jobs. And I'm just trying to link those things because I'm telling you that impacts the education of the child, it impacts the security of the family, it impacts the stability of the home. And if we can do that, then we are on the right path.
Thank you, Mr. Mervan. And we have one last question we're going to answer or respond here. Tara? Tara, you said you had one question pending there.
I'm sorry, I had to unmute real quick. We have one question, and we have one person with her hand up. Her name is Cassandra.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Cassandra had a question she wanted to ask. And then the question was, what suggestions do you have for parents who have to pay for damaged Chromebooks? that the school has provided and the child has damaged it.
I dealt with that last year. We looked up, we had a cracked screen in the house. Like, how did this happen? That's I haven't thought about that. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I haven't thought about it. That reminds me of the issues dealing with book rental, right? And the fees that are associated with book rental and community and people that may not be able to make those payments. So I think that's something that we have to take a look at. This is a great takeaway for me in this conversation, is that what are some of the policies that districts possibly have, and are parents responsible for that, and what's the responsibility? So thanks whoever asked that question. It's something I definitely look into.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're dealing with low income, lower than usual because of the pandemic. So that is a very good question, Kendra. So the person had their hand up, are they going to chime in or mute, Tara?
I'm sorry, I was trying to say, listen, Janae is hollering, Tara, mute. I'm like, girl. So I apologize. Her name was Cassandra, and she did have her hand up. I'm not sure if she had a question or not.
Okay.
I have asked her to unmute if she wanted to have something to say.
Okay.
So at this point, I guess we can move on.
Okay, wonderful.
Wait a minute, Kendra says, what suggestion do you have for parents who, unfortunately, married low-income parents are left out when it comes to child care because single parents are given top priority. Furthermore, many cannot access child care because they make $10 or more over allocated income.
Did anyone get that?
I didn't know if that was a question or just a statement.
I don't know. Yes, Kendra, are you making a statement or is that a question?
And Representative Beck says she needs to be unmuted.
Yes, I see her. Yeah, you getting unmute. Janae is taking care of that.
Okay, I was just going to say that we had a couple amendments that we tried to get passed last year. One of them was Representative Hamilton had an amendment to create 19,000 new pre-K scholarships. And unfortunately, that was voted down. We also had an amendment that Representative Austin brought that would require FSSA to post monthly pre-K enrollment numbers online. And that was also shot down, unfortunately. So, I mean, we've tried to do some things to help with that, with making sure pre-K. There was CARES Act money that was available. And I know that the requirements or the thresholds were, you know, a lot of people, I've had conversations with people in my district that needed some help. And, you know, there was in the situation, there was other things that we could try to help them with. But that is an issue. I do think that, you know, I had them pull some numbers because some of the schools, when I talked to the superintendents, I had meetings telephonic and in person with some of them. And one of the questions that we had at the State House, there was some money that came in through CARES Act. You probably saw there was a big deal because there was over $1 billion that hadn't even been allocated yet of CARES Act money that we hadn't even spent. And so I had them pull some numbers on under child care and development. The state of Indiana was given $78.8 million. And as of just recently, we've only spent 61.9. So there's $60.8 million that's left that we haven't spent yet. Under government emergency education relief, we had $61.5 million allocated and nothing has been spent out of that. We also had elementary and second emergency fund, $214 million, and we've only spent $10.7 million. So I know that there has been an effort, and some of the programs have been redesigned. The Restart program for small businesses, the governor has widened who can get access to that money. I know that there was, what I heard from some of my school districts was that there was originally FEMA money that was available for you know, for the expenses that schools have had to put out for COVID, whether it's new filtering systems or some of the PPE and all the things that they've had to take on. And there was a change in whether or not they can get, you know, reimbursed for some of those items. So I think that we can look into that. And, you know, I'm not sure if that's at the federal level. We may need Frank to help us out with something like that, Senator Mervan, or soon to be Senator Mervan. And then, you know, some of the other things that we looked at, the changes that came with some of the CARES Act money, you know, there was unemployment at one point. We had an extra $600 a week that our unemployed were getting. You know, when we talk about stability of the home, some of the low wage earners, the argument was a low wage earner, somebody making minimum wage, would be making more money with that $600 extra a week than they would with their actual pay from their low wage job. But the problem came in when we had higher wage earners who are now, you know, out of work, and the $600 plus what we get in Indiana for unemployment, the regular traditional unemployment is at the most $390. We had folks that were families, and I'm sure Senator Melton, I'm sure you've seen it when you had people calling into your office, and I'm sure that as trustee Trustee Mervan, soon to be Senator Mervan, you know, there were people that were really hurting because even with the $600, they were not making enough money. Of course, we didn't hear that, but I can tell you that there were families that were really hurting. So the $600 a week ended at the end of July, and we have not had any more additional help from Washington, D.C., and we do need that. There was an executive order from the president that Indiana added an additional $300 a week, only from the period of August 2nd to September. But I will tell you that when you're on unemployment for a while, and when your job, if you're in the trades, or a job where you're not necessarily working, you know, consistently. So now we're having people that maybe were a higher wage earner, and they have bills that are, you know, they're used to the higher wage, and now they're getting PUA, which is if you don't qualify for traditional unemployment, then, you know, if your wages aren't high enough, then you can get the PUA, which is federal money, but it's a lot less. And so I had several people call me because their PUA was less than $100 per week. And if it's less than $100 per week, then you don't get the $300 a week. So we've really cut, you know, it didn't turn out good. Let me just say that. We're talking about people. I talked to one gentleman who had 4 kids, and he didn't get the $300 because the amount that they calculated him at under PUA was only $97 a week. So he was $3 short of getting the $300 extra a week. So I think, you know, we could have worked on that. I mean, just as an example, in Indiana, the lowest amount of unemployment that we will do weekly is $50 a week. In Illinois, the least amount they'll do is $150. There's several states that are like that. So I think that's something that, you know, we're always working on in Indiana, in the State House, is trying to increase the amount of unemployment for families. Right now, we don't give any extra incentive. A person that's single gets the same amount as somebody that has 4 kids. We had an amendment here to try to help families, and this was before COVID, and it didn't get passed. So we are continuing to work, and hopefully I haven't talked too much, but
thank you.
Anyway,
Thank you. And for essence of time, I just want to make sure, Janae and Tara, will we allow one more question? I'm about to put the radio voice on me. It's 46 minutes after the hour, and we got to keep going.
Eve, I just wanted to, Eve, if I can just add one thing, it'll be quick and to the point, but for parents who fall out of that scope, United Way, the Lake County United Way has focused on Alice families. Those are families that are living paycheck to paycheck. And they had received a decent amount of grant dollars from the private sector, the Eli Lilly Foundation, and also other dollars that are available to help families through those situations and to be able to guide them through childcare, specifically those issues. I'm not punting from the federal side of things and how we're going to work hard and focus on unemployment and childcare subsidies. But the fact of the matter is that United Way has private dollars that are dedicated to Alice families living paycheck to paycheck, that if they face a crisis, they start losing childcare, they lose their home, they lose their utilities, that are available and resources to be able to assist.
I would just
Oh,
say,
well, thank you.
early in the year, I met with one of the school corporations because Lake County was one of the original pilot programs for pre-K. And what we were trying to do, and we did sit down with United Way. I'm not sure what happened because COVID happened and everything kind of was on a lockdown, but I can tell you that when I was at the last school board meeting, they talked about the school board, or I should say the administrator, the superintendent talked about how they were working with Crown Counseling to make sure that the kids have help, and then also with the YMCA. So I don't know what has been worked out with the YMCA, but I think the school districts are trying to address those issues because, as one lady described to me, she said, she was a higher wage earner, and she said that she has children at home, and it was really difficult for her because she had to go to work, and then she had to pay somebody. So it was only because of COVID. And I know on the other side of that, we also have to be respectful, going back to what Senator Melton said, we have to bring back respect to the profession of education and
Most definitely.
look at schools as being a pre-K. Obviously, we can't do that. But, I think going back to what Senator Melton said, I think that this is a great conversation. How do we fix that? Because
Right.
I think there's good argument on both sides.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lisa. And I think we're going to hear at our closing, and we want to hear the closing by each legislator. Well, that was certainly very, very important, informative and important information. And I thank all of you so much to be full engaged in this evening's event. And of course, this is one of several town hall meetings that we're going to conduct here. And we thank you for your time, because I know that you guys are very busy. And to me, I appreciate your time and value it as well. So let's now give you, the legislators, an opportunity to reflect on your experience for this evening. And I will start with Democratic nominee for Congress, Mervan.
So I want to thank you all.
3 minutes, okay?
Yeah, so I'll get to the point. I want to thank you all very much. And what we need to walk away from this Zoom call is that the pillars of education and the diversification of our educational system is vital. And so as a North Township trustee, as I mentioned from the very beginning, removing obstacles from students, because that's what Janae does, that's what a lot of organizations do, and making sure that we have fair, equitable opportunities throughout our educational system. We want safety, we want stability, and we want equal opportunity for our children. And when we have that, our dreams and our goals are that all children, black, brown, white, all religions, all creeds, have a fair opportunity in the United States of America to be able to succeed, to be able to reach their full potential and their dreams. So what we covered is making sure that we respect and pay teachers at a fair level. We're making sure that during a COVID pandemic, our teachers, our staff, our community, and our students are safe, that we're evolving and making sure that we're prioritizing a new way of learning going forward, which we have to be able to examine on a federal, state, and local level, and making sure that we prioritize safety, education, and diversification in the schools. When I worked with Jenna in making sure that the Parenting Institute worked with our clients, our goal was to make sure that we gave people a fair shot in being able to reach their potential and dreams. The conversation went off into childcare. That is something that is vital, that we see every single day in the Township Trustee's office. And what Lisa Beck so eloquently and dissected and made sure that we understand, in the state of Indiana, even with the federal assistance of $600, families still can't make it. So we have to be able to create opportunities for families to be able to have childcare, to be able to work and thrive, and that we need to level the playing field. And I know those are all cliches, but that's what we covered today. And we've got to elect individuals that understand the value of education and the pillar and the dynamic of what goes into teaching a child and getting them to their full potential in the urban areas, in the rural areas, and the suburban areas. And I believe that that's what is important. Senator Melton has been a champion for education. He's on the education committee. He's worked with the unions. Wherever you go, a teacher will thank him for the ability, and Lisa Beck, for the ability to make sure our teachers are paid better. They're, I think, in the lower, 5 or 10 in the United States. If you're going to respect teachers, we have to put our money where our mouth is, and really focus on making sure that we're adequately compensating our teachers to attract the best talent, so that our children, and this is the key point, are safe, secure, and reaching their full potential, but also for economic development. If you're going to bring in a Amazon or a corporation into Northwest Indiana to increase the quality of life for everything that we have to offer, you've got to be able to fulfill their needs for those job requirements. And that all goes back into the school system. So when we talk about, a good education, it's an all hands on deck.
That's right.
Smart legislation, education, and making sure that we're able to fill the jobs of the future so that our communities continue to grow and thrive, and we're able to attract the most talent. And
Thank
so I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And Senator Melton? Please unmute Mr. Senator Melton.
All right, thank you. Well, first off, this was great. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope it was helpful. Hopefully there'll be more conversations. I want to send a shout out to my friend Kendra Johnson. I see you there. Thanks for your engagement as well, and your leadership as a parent advocate. Look, I just want to close by saying this, and we talked about COVID-19, and we talked about what it has revealed to us. I think is extremely incumbent upon not just the legislators, but everyone that's on this panel, everyone that's on and watching via social media, to be a part of the process, meaning the political process. I'm being very frank and honest with you. There's no secret of what times we're dealing with. I'm not going to make this a political spiel, but let's acknowledge we have the census coming up. And I believe the last day, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eve, October 5th, maybe the last day for the census. I'm not sure. Yes. But also we have important elections participating and taking place. So friends and family members have to participate. Every issue that we talked about tonight, every single one of them is going to be on the ballot. And we have to talk about what steps and what voice and how your voice plays a part in that process. So I just want to encourage folks to continue to remain engaged with organizations like those that's on the line today. Continue to let your voices be heard at town halls and forums, be it if it's virtual now or later. But we're all in this together. So whatever our office can do, feel free to reach out to my office. I see there was a few more questions that was remaining. Melanie Brown, I seen the question regarding your first grader that you were talking about earlier too. So let me know if there's something that we can do to aid and assist in that. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for putting those things out. And they're very, very important. Everything you all three have mentioned, the parents are concerned, but so are the educators. So what do we do with this pandemic, right? And for you, Representative Beck? Please unmute Ms. Beck.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me on this Zoom. I think it's been really informative to me. I really appreciate all the information that I've received. I think in conclusion, I would just like to say that I do appreciate that the governor stood behind giving the schools 100% of their funding. You know, there was a moment there where the schools were going to, if they didn't have 85%, or they were only going to get 85% if they didn't have, if their numbers were too high for their the e-learning. And I know that with each one of our schools, each one of the school systems, except for Porter Township, because they went full days, 5 days. But with the ones that were on hybrid, a lot of them, their original numbers that they thought they were going to have on e-learning turned out to be the numbers were a lot less than what they are at now. So more people went on to e-learning. Some of the school system, you know, goes back to what Senator Melton said. You know, there was a lack of leadership and how this thing all rolled out. You know, at one point when the kids were getting ready to go back to school, I saw the presentation from the superintendent in Hobart, and she said that, you know, the guidance from our local Lake County Health Department versus the state health department versus the governor was all conflicting. And it was really difficult for them to make decisions. I think that, you know, that's something that we definitely need to work on. I do think that, you know, this year coming up, we're going to have our education policy it should be made by educators. And right now, as you know, Superintendent of Public Education, Jennifer McCormick, will not be our leader at the end of this year. And I think that, you know, yeah, I'm not in favor of that. I think that that's not going to necessarily be good, because I think we need to have an educator that's setting policy on education, and, you know, to remove the decisions from the public and make it a political decision is, we'll have to wait and see how this is going to roll out. But, you know, I have a lot of fears about that. I've been looking at some of the questions in the chat as well. And I do love the quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." I love that. And I have to say that I also think that, you know, education is the backbone of our community. And, you know, every child should have an opportunity. So, you know, I think that there was another bill that I just want to say that also failed. I should say an amendment that we had, and it was brought by Representative Porter. And it was, you know, there was the budget. We found out that the budget last year, that there was the original projections were lower than what the budget actually had. So there was an additional $291 million to that we had asked in this amendment, that the money go toward schools to pay off some of their debt, and also to possibly for teacher raises. And unfortunately that failed. So I think that, you know, we are going to continue to find ways to try to, you know, support teachers and, you know, bring back the respect that teachers seem to be lacking now, so that we can get more teachers, get more students that want to go into teaching. But thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And of course, this brings you to the end, as not to the end of the rainbow, just to the end of this one, right? And we thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you for your time, your patience in the beginning. I know that we can be zooming in and zooming out, and it's almost like what's happening at home. And we thank you all for continuously working on making things better. We hope you enjoyed your time with us and found this experience to be profitable, beneficial for you and your families. And tonight's legislators are not the only ones with a call to action. Every one of you that's attending tonight's event gets a call to action as well. And what is that? You may be asking, right? Well, we're asking all of you who have joined us this evening to continue this journey and to join us in our efforts to support our children's development and resiliency via quality education and life preparation. And if you're passionate about any of these issues that were discussed tonight, we need your help. Each of tonight's features voices are looking for volunteers, especially mentors. So to spread the word about their work and to help us help our kids to excel and thrive. We'll be sending out a follow-up email shortly that will permit you to sign up to volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers, and your call to action, well, sign up to be a volunteer. I think that's the best and the most paying job. It's volunteerism. And we invite a friend, or would you invite a friend or two as well? So start your legacy today, parents, guests, everyone that's here. Start your legacy today. We need you. This is a team effort. This is a, you know, as we say, it takes a village to raise a child, and that is definitely also true for such a time as this. And for your information, we have recorded this town hall. I think someone had asked earlier, and we should be able to you should be able to access this shortly on also following Facebook pages. We thank you for following us, and if you have not, like us on Facebook, and that's the Indiana Parenting Institute, also the My School Options, and below that you will see the contact information for the legislators on the chat. who was with us today. And of course, please feel free to reach out to them with any additional ideas you may have come up with, or make the region a better place for education, and for most of all, for our youth, which is our future. And they need us to lead by example. And so we'd like for you to enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, and you all have a blessed evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Eve Gomez, and it's been a pleasure for me to be here to help moderate and facilitate this town hall. That is more to come, and we hope that you continue to support it as well. Thank you so much. You guys be safe.